So at the Dogu, which is a big wrestling tournament that has a lot of the best guys in the world in freestyle wrestling, a couple of Americans just won gold medals today. Alex Derringer is one of them. Yanni Giacomo is the other. And this is just another reminder to me of what one of the things that I absolutely despise about wrestling, and one of the things that I'm worried about infiltrating into sports like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and some other combat sports. So for those of you who aren't aware of Alex Derringer and Yanni Giacomo, both of these guys are obviously elite wrestlers, given that they just won the Dogu. There's also a good chance that neither of these guys are going to be representing the United States this year at the World Championships. So Yanni Giacomo lost his first match in the what they call Final X to Zane Rutherford. The second match was a little more controversial, and it's unclear if there's going to be any sort of retribution there, whether they're going to re-wrestle that second match or whether they're just going to wrestle a third match. Whoever wins that makes the team. So it's not clear what's going to go on there. It is worth mentioning that Yanni did beat Zane Rutherford in this tournament in the first round. And then Alex Derringer would have to beat world champion Kyle Dake to make the team. So what's either going to happen is Alex Derringer, who won the Dogu, is going to lose to Kyle Dake and not make the team, or he's going to beat world champion Kyle Dake, and then world champion Kyle Dake will not be on the team. Which leads to the point of why the hell are there teams in this individual sport for world championships? Why would the world championships, instead of just having, say, the best 16 guys in the world or the best 32 guys in the world, why do they decide that there can only be one guy per country? So what I did is I made a little mini slideshow just showing a couple of popular rivalries in individual sports. So here we have Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods. Here we have Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. Here we have Venus and Serena Williams. Andre Agassi and Pete Sampras, John Jones and Daniel Cormier, Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm. What exactly do all these pictures have in common? What all of these pictures have in common is that these guys are two guys from the same country who also happen to be the best two guys in the world at the time of the pictures being taken, fighting it out for the world championship. If these sports were like wrestling, this would not happen. There would be no Tiger versus Phil at the Masters because they would have determined in a qualifier who gets to go to the Masters, and one of these guys would have been sitting out. There would be no Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield for the heavyweight boxing championship. This would have been determined in a qualifier to determine who can represent the United States. The other guy would not be in this big fight. Venus and Serena Williams. If tennis was like wrestling, there would have been a qualifier. Who gets to represent America? Well, in this case, Serena Williams would have represented America, so Venus Williams, despite being the second best player in the world at the time, would not have been able to participate in Wimbledon. Andre Agassi and Pete Sampras. Again, Pete Sampras would have won the qualifier against Andre Agassi. Andre Agassi would not have even been in the 128-man field at the U.S. Open here because he was not the number one American according to the qualifier. Or who knows, maybe the qualifier would have gone the other way. Maybe Agassi beats him in the qualifier, and Sampras, who won this U.S. Open, doesn't even get a shot at it. John Jones and Daniel Cormier. Instead of these guys fighting for the UFC World Heavyweight Championship or Light Heavyweight Championship, they had said go to a qualifier. John Jones represents the U.S. Daniel Cormier doesn't get to do anything in the light heavyweight division until Jones is gone. Although I guess some people may say, to be fair, Cormier didn't win the title until Jones was gone. But point being, this fight wouldn't even happen in like the bright lights. It would happen back in a team trial type of situation. And then Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey, same type of thing. These ladies are both American, so rather than this being a big world championship fight, it would have been done in qualifiers. So the point being, I think you understand the idea of saying there can only be one person per country, and oftentimes meaning that the two best guys in the world don't get to compete at the world championships. It's just a really stupid idea. But one of the reasons that this really bugs me is that a lot of people say that the reason for it is because the Olympics is such an important tournament. It's so important to do what the Olympics want, and that the Olympics can really vault a sport. That is the biggest crock of shit I've ever heard. The Olympics don't vault any sports. What are the biggest Olympic sports that you watch during Olympic years? Pretty much all of them are sports that you don't watch during any other year. So despite them getting a ton of coverage, it doesn't really matter. Swimming gets a ton of coverage during the Summer Olympics. Do you ever watch swimming outside of it, despite all that coverage, despite all the time that you see them on screen, even despite having some stars come out of it like Michael Phelps? Who watches swimming? Nobody watches swimming unless it's the Olympics. Same can be said for beach volleyball. Any sport that's a big Olympic sport that even gets a ton of coverage during the Olympics, it doesn't translate outside of that. And that's just saying that that's assuming you even do get a lot of coverage. Wrestling doesn't get a lot of coverage. So wrestling bends over backwards to try to do what makes the Olympic Committee happy. And in return, what do they get? They really don't get anything. So what we have here is a list, and this is from Wikipedia, so maybe a little bit wrong, but it still makes my point here. These are the biggest sports leagues by revenue. What I want to point out is when we talk about each sport, I want to note whether or not these sports are Olympic sports, either current or past, and I want to note whether or not the biggest grand prize, the biggest thing you can win, is the Olympics in it. So in wrestling, one of the weird things is that you can have someone who's a world champion but never an Olympic champion. They don't really feel like they accomplished their goals. They don't feel like they accomplished what they had to in the sport because they didn't win on an Olympic year. Let's go down the list. So number one, National Football League. What sport is that? That's American football. American football is not a part of the Olympics. So the biggest worldwide sport, the biggest league in the world, I guess this is by league, so I guess some of the sports add up, like soccer. So if you add all the leagues together, the biggest league in the world, or the sport that's played in the biggest league in the world, is not an Olympic sport, and its championship is handled separately by the league, the NFL. Baseball. Baseball is not currently an Olympic sport, though it has been in the past, although it really wasn't all that popular in the Olympics. MLB, they're number two. Again, if you're a baseball player, you don't think about winning Olympic gold for your team. You think about winning the World Series. It's its own separate thing outside of the Olympics. Number three, NBA or basketball with the NBA. Again, the biggest title you can win in basketball is with the NBA. It's not an Olympic gold medal. Oftentimes, a lot of the best players in America don't even decide to compete for an Olympic gold medal. Sometimes they'll just skip the team and not even play on it. The team or the league after that is the Premier League, which is association football, which is like club, which is soccer, effectively. So you have a soccer league here. There is soccer in the Olympics, but again, the biggest prize in soccer isn't the Olympic gold medal. The biggest prize is the World Cup, which again is separate from the Olympics. We can go again, National Hockey League. You go further down the list, same thing applies. There is hockey in the Olympics, but winning the Olympic gold medal, not the biggest thing. The biggest thing is the Stanley Cup. People, if you're a hockey player, you dream about winning the Stanley Cup. You don't dream about winning Olympic gold. Yes, Olympic gold is nice. Yes, it's definitely something that the players like to do, but the Stanley Cup is the main goal. Point being, if you look at all these big sports, all these sports that have been very successful around the world, they don't try to become Olympic champions as if that's like the be all end all. They have their own private thing that they work towards. And then the Olympics, maybe it's something they do, maybe it's something they don't do. But even if it's something that they do, it's more on the side. Even with tennis, you look at tennis. Yes, there's Olympic tennis, but people care more about Grand Slams than they care about the Olympics. And in part, like I mentioned before, Grand Slams, you can have all the best guys in the world, whether that means there's like 20 Americans in one draw, or whether that means there's one American in a draw. It doesn't matter. The best guy comes out on top. So winning an Olympic gold really isn't, it's not thought of the same as winning a Grand Slam. And Grand Slams happen 4 times a year. Olympic gold you can win one time every 4 years. And even still, it doesn't mean as much as winning a Grand Slam. So if you're wrestling, if you really want to grow, you got to stop trying to copy the Olympics. You got to stop it with these world championships where you're copying the Olympics, trying to use their weight classes, trying to make sure that you can only have one person per country. Just stop it. Just make a tournament when you have the best guys in the world. If that means that you have like 8 Russians, 7 Iranians, and 4 Americans in one draw, you know what? So be it. Too bad. If that's who the best guys are, that's who the best guys are. Let them compete it out and see who wins that tournament. But to make it so that you can only have one person per country, it doesn't make sense. This is an individual sport. It's not a team sport. And if you really want to have a team aspect, then just like find a way to score points like you would. I guess oftentimes like a jiu-jitsu tournament where based off of results, it gets attributed to a team. You can do it that way, but you don't need to limit it in this way. And in sports like jiu-jitsu where there are people talking about getting into the Olympics, this is one of the big reasons I don't want it, because the Olympics, they do things their own way. For them, it's more about the team of the country versus the country, and these are individual sports. It needs to be handled like an individual sport. We need to let individual athletes go against each other. So it's a shame that guys like Kyle Dake and David Taylor were kept off of world teams for a while because there was only one guy who could go at the weight. It's a shame that either Kyle Dake or Alex Deringer are going to are just not going to be in the worlds this year. It's a shame that either Yanni or Zane are not going to be in the worlds this year. And I really hope that at some point, someone within UWW says, hey, look, on Olympic years, the Olympics can do what they want. That can kind of be its own side thing. But we the UWW, want to lead wrestling. We want to be the NBA of wrestling. We don't just want to be a federation and let the Olympics run roughshod on our sport. So I hope that there's some change there. I hope that more people really start to see the error in this way. I hope that more people just look at all these other sports where you have these great rivalries of two people from the same country at the highest levels and realize that wrestling is excluding that because they feel like you can only have one person per country. It's a really stupid idea. It doesn't make any sense. It would have ruined a lot of these sports. I feel like it's doing a lot to ruin wrestling. And if you really want to grow wrestling, it's not a bad thing to have two people from the same country who are feuding, because oftentimes people like one guy and not the other. And in a way, having that polarization really helps.